Hi everyone. It's great to see you again. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Today, we have a brand new story to share with you. So, let's get started. I sat on the couch and looked at the TV to act like I wasn't hearing her. She wasn't going to give up, though. My daughter looked at me with crossed arms and a sneer as if I were the biggest failure in her life. Real men forgive cheating, she said. You're weak because you threw away everything because of one mistake. That was the end of years of letting my pride get in the way, taking hits, and letting her believe whatever her mother told her. I turned off the TV and looked at her. Do you want to know the truth? I spoke in a calm but strong way. She rolled her eyes, as if she was ready for another reason or try to change her mind. I didn't argue. Instead, I got up, walked over to the cabinet next to the bookshelf, and opened the drawer. I took out a small flash drive from inside. She watched as I hooked it up to the TV, still not interested. The picture started to play after the screen flickered. At first, she didn't say anything. The grainy black and white security video showed our old house, which was also her childhood home. The front door opened when she was probably ready for something dull and unimportant. It was 2 years before the split, as shown by the time stamp in the corner of the screen. Inside, 2 guys in uniforms for construction workers walked in. I saw my daughter's smug faces change into slight confusion as soon as she realized they were strangers. Then her mom walked into the picture. She wasn't just saying hello, there was no awkward handshake and no talk about fixing things around the house. As soon as they felt how she touched them and led them deeper into the house, they knew what she was all about. My daughter tensed up and looked at me quickly, as if she wanted to know if what she was seeing was real. I didn't say anything. The 3 of them went down the hall and disappeared on the screen. The video switched to a different camera that caught the entrance to the master bedroom. The door was closed as my ex-wife led them inside, but I had more video than that. Another view from inside the room was shown in the next clip. I really didn't want to watch it again because I had already seen it so many times that I couldn't forget it. When my daughter finally did something, she took a deep breath as the truth of the situation hit her. Not only was her mother cheating on her, she was also brave, careless, and didn't care about the house she built with me. Everything was caught on film. The next video showed the same men on a different day and in different clothes. The worst part came next. It was a moment that I had thought about for years. Another room was shown on the screen. The room for my baby. As she watched her mother bring them inside, she jerked and clenched her hands together. That was for sure the bed my daughter used to sleep in, and the walls were covered with pictures of her favorite movies as a child. She took a step back as if the images could reach out and grab her. I turned off the video. She couldn't say anything for the first time in years. She opened her mouth, but she didn't say anything. I could see her trying to find something that made sense, something that would make sense of what she had seen. It didn't come. My arms were on my knees as I leaned forward. I did not want you to see this. The only thing that was off about my hands was my voice. I didn't want it to happen to you. I was going to keep how you saw your mother secret. She opened her mouth a little, but then shut it again. It was still registering with her how terrible what she had just seen was. There I was. She finally asked in a whisper, "Why didn't you tell me?" Because I knew this day would come. I told the truth because I knew it would hurt more than any lie. I didn't want to be the reason she stopped believing in someone she loved. I didn't say any of those things, though. I looked her in the eyes instead and told her, because I didn't want to take away the mother you thought you had. There was a lot of silence between us. The room felt more crowded. There was something in the air that couldn't be taken back. Then, just above a whisper, she said, "I need to talk to her." I agreed, even though I knew the talk wasn't over yet. As she looked at the still picture on the screen, she didn't say a word. She was tense all over. The way she crossed her arms was making her fingers turn white. I could see her mind working as it tried to make sense of what she had just seen in light of the story she had believed for years. I took a seat and waited. I was not going to push. She had to think about this by herself. She finally spoke up. The sound in her voice made me think this wasn't real. I used the remote to play another video. It looked like the screen turned around. Same guys, same house, different clothes, but the same things happen every night. My ex-wife led them into our bedroom like it was nothing out of the ordinary. My daughter leapt back and watched. Another black and white clip from another night shows a moment of deception. It got harder for her to breathe. This has been changed. She tried again, but her voice was shaking more than the words she was saying. I didn't fight back. I just clicked play on the next movie. This time, it was very bright outside. While she was on the phone, my ex-wife laughed and opened the door for them. There are no masks or shadows to hide behind. There was only her in our house, acting like this was nothing out of the ordinary. Before kissing the other man, she gave one of them a drink. She didn't make a mistake or lose her cool with the way she moved or spoke. This was done on purpose. My daughter let out a sharp breath. I did it, so stop. She stood up quickly and paced the room with her hands on her head, as if she were trying to keep herself together. She stopped talking in the middle of a sentence and shook her head. She told me, but her words stopped there. And I watched as it finally clicked. She lied to herself more than to me, she said. I said yes. When she turned to face me, her eyes were sharp with something new. For once, it wasn't anger at me. How long has this been yours? Since before the split. Her face was twisted, showing a mix of shock and anger. I sighed and ran my hand over my face. Then why didn't you show me before? I didn't want you to see your mom like this. She laughed in a mean way. You made me think you were the bad guy instead, right? I told you straight out that I let you think what you needed to think. I wasn't going to make you do this. She laughed and shook her head. I didn't want you to hate her. She had no trouble making me dislike you. I didn't answer. She sat down again and looked at the floor with heavy eyes. She said in a whisper, I was so sure. I was sure she wouldn't. She stopped talking, but I knew how that line ended. She thought very highly of her mother. And now that platform was broken. After a long quiet, she finally asked if it was just them. I was unsure. She saw it. I sighed, Dad. No, she lost her color. She did nothing but stare at the ground for a long time. I could see the wheels turning and the links coming together in her mind. She thought about more than just the movies. She was thinking about all of their arguments and conversations. Over and over, her mother swore that I was the one who messed everything up. She now knew the truth. She looked at me and spoke in a soft but strong voice. I need to talk to her. I knew exactly what was going to happen in that talk, so I nodded. She didn't wait around. She picked up the phone and called her mom as soon as the shock turned into something solid and sharp. I didn't try to stop her. She jumped impatiently on her knee as the phone rang while she held it to her ear. Then Mom came along. Her voice was tight and in check. I couldn't make out what was being said on the other end, but I thought it was a friendly voice asking why she was calling out of the blue. My kid didn't take it easy. I need to talk to you now. For a moment, she held the phone tight in her hands. I'm at my dad's house, not here. One more stop. I'm not going to come over. Come on over here. This was the first time she looked at me since she made the call. It looked like she was getting ready. She then said, I get it. I could hear the quiet on the other end from across the room because it was so long. Then a rush of words that were too fast and too well controlled. To get ahead of it, her mother did. My daughter's jaw got tight, and I watched. She snapped, no. Come on over. She didn't wait for someone to answer before hanging up. She lost her grip on the phone and it fell to the couch next to her. Still, her knee was moving around. She was ready. I was too. It was quick. After 20 minutes, someone knocked on the door. My girl didn't move. I got up, walked across the room, and opened the door. She was there. Outside, my ex-wife walked in like she owned the place and didn't even look at me. She was looking at our daughter and her face was set, defensive, dismissive, and in charge. She asked with a light tone, "What is this about?" She caught my daughter's eye. I could see her doubt starting to show. Years of conditioning have made her believe every lie and every excuse, but she clenched her hands and grounded herself. I watched the movies. The response was right away. There was a flash of shock or fear in my ex-wife's eyes, but she quickly covered it up with a scoff. Which videos? My kid wasn't having fun. There was more flickering and then a slow, deliberate exhale. It was the security video. If I didn't know better, my ex-wife's lips might have been curled in a way that looked like she was amused when she looked at me. Is this what we're doing now? She made a hazy motion toward the space between us. Being a part of our mess. I didn't answer. My daughter leaned in. Tell me the truth. Her mom let out a sigh that made her sound tired. That was a long time ago, sweetheart. My daughter cringed because it didn't mean anything. It was in my room. For the first time, there was silence, and my ex-wife looked out of sorts. She didn't feel guilty or ashamed, she was just mad that the conversation had gone in a different way than she had planned. She tried to explain the whole story, but you don't get it. Your dad and I. My daughter yelled, "Don't. Do not make this about him. One more stop." My ex-wife carefully watched her and changed her strategies. She said in a soft voice, "I hurt. I was by myself. Your dad." My daughter laughed for a short time, but not at all. "Oh, so he's to blame." She quickly said, "Of course not," shaking her head. "But getting married is hard. It's hard to be in a relationship." My daughter's face turned serious. "I don't care about how you two are together. It bothers me that you lied to me." In front of me was a clear and direct charge. My ex-wife was unsure. "I did not mean to hurt you." The sound my daughter made was sharp. "So you let me dislike him?" That was the moment when things went wrong. The look on my ex-wife's face got tighter. Her soft voice went away. "I did what I needed to do." She got a long look from my daughter. But she didn't look at me before she got up and left the room. The door to her old bedroom clicked shut as I heard her steps on the stairs. My ex-wife let out a heavy breath and shook her head. Great drama. I didn't answer. As she turned to leave, she took out her phone, possibly to call our daughter and change the subject. I was pretty sure it wouldn't work this time, though. She called before she even got to her car. On the second floor, I could hear my daughter's phone ring, but she didn't answer. After a short time, there was another call. Then a third. My ex-wife let out a frustrated breath and shoved her phone into her bag. She looked at me again with sharp eyes. "Are you okay now?" I didn't answer. She laughed. "You had to show her that?" "Really? After everything?" My arms were crossed as I leaned against the doorframe. She wanted to know the truth. That look on her face changed into something bitter. She is a child. She has no idea what marriage or real relationships are. She doesn't understand what it's like to be stuck with someone who doesn't see you. I didn't say anything. She laughed very hard. "Thank you very much. You always stand there like you're above everything and have nothing to do with it." She made a hazy motion with angry eyes. "You believe you were a great husband. You were cold and far away, and you were always too busy with work to notice me. Ah, there it was, the writing I knew. When she was first caught, I heard this speech. I was still stupid enough to fight with her because I thought logic and reason would help her see what she had done. I'll let her talk now. She moved closer and spoke more quietly, as if she were telling a big secret. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I also wasn't going to waste my time waiting for you to become the husband I needed. I let out a breath through my nose. That makes everything okay, right? She smiled and shook her head as if I had completely missed the point. There is no reason for anything. Things aren't that easy in life. She cocked her head. We both know that I wasn't the only one who was sad, though. I made a face. I've never lied. She kept her smile on. You gave up on us a long time before I did, so maybe not. As I looked at her, I tried to remember the woman I had loved, married, and made a life with. I couldn't find her. I only saw someone who would change history rather than take blame. Again, my daughter's phone buzzed upstairs. She saw it. She'll change her mind. I turned my head away. I don't think she will, though. She felt something close to doubt for the first time, but she quickly pushed it out of her mind. This is only about how mad she is. She needs some time to calm down. I didn't fight back. She sighed and looked at her phone again. I need to leave. She walked toward the door, stopped, and looked at me again. Didn't you always have to be the good guy? I looked into her eyes. I didn't have to try. She tightened her teeth, but she didn't say anything. Her heels hit the ground as she turned around and walked out. Before going upstairs, I waited until she was gone. My daughter was sitting on the edge of her bed and looking at nothing. She had her phone next to her and the screen was lit up with a dozen missed calls. When she talked, she didn't look at me. She doesn't care that she lied. She only wants me to know. I sat down next to her. She took out her phone and read through the texts she hadn't read yet. She's still trying to make it sound like nothing happened. She took a deep breath, locked the screen, and put it back down. It's strange. I thought it would hurt more. I didn't say anything. She looked at me. May I stay? I said yes. Her breath was like it had been held for years, and she finally let it go when she let it out. She then got a pillow, put it against her chest, and leaned back against the frame. That was all she said. She didn't have to for the first time in a long time. That night or the next, she didn't go back. Her mom texted and called her over and over, but the texts got shorter and angrier. At first, people made excuses and desperate attempts to explain things. But soon, they turned to guilt trips, demands, and finally quiet. My daughter didn't use her phone much. She read all of them, but she rarely replied. She only ever sent back a short clip that said, I need time. I didn't push her. It took her a while to figure it out, but she did. I also knew I shouldn't have rushed it. It was a week before she made up her mind. Her arms were crossed over her chest as she leaned against the counter in the kitchen. She always had that same look on when she was getting ready for something hard or important. She said, I want to move in. There should be no doubt or delay. I put my coffee down. Are you sure? She said yes. Yes. Then it got quieter, like she was okay with it now. I no longer want to live with her. She wasn't mad when she said it. Just a calm and steady resolve. I agreed with you. That's all there was to it. There will be no big speech or long explanation. After a long time, they finally made up their minds. She let out a sigh and shook her hands together as if she were letting go of all the stress in her body. Today I'll get my stuff. I was ready for fight. I thought her mother would fight, refuse, and take this to court just to stay in charge. Something was different when we got to the house, though. The front door was open already. Her mom was waiting in the living room with her arms crossed. Her face turned red as soon as she saw us. "That's it, right?" she asked with a cold voice. "You're just leaving?" My daughter didn't pause for long. "Yeah," a sharp breath and then a laugh that wasn't funny at all. "You're going wrong." My kid didn't answer. She walked by and then went upstairs to pack. That left my ex-wife and me alone. For a long time, she looked at me with eyes that couldn't be read. After that, she shook her head and her lips turned bitter. "Do you really believe this makes you a better parent?" "It's not about me," I sighed. She let out a slow, steady breath. "She'll be back." I didn't fight back. What she didn't want to hear was that she had gone too far this time, that this wasn't just a teenage temper tantrum, and that a few nice words wouldn't help. This was the last straw. She had to have known it in her heart. My daughter quickly went through her room upstairs, taking only the things that were important to her. She put clothes into bags, grabbed her favorite books, her laptop, and the stuffed animals she had as a kid. It was quick. She didn't even look at her mother again when she got back down. We left without saying anything else. She turned around and left. It was quiet the first night in the house. She unpacked in quiet, moving slowly through the room as if she wasn't quite ready to believe it was hers yet. There will be no more short trips or going back and forth between homes. Right here. I gave her some space. She didn't say much, cry, or get mad. She just lived in this new world, taking it one breath at a time. Things began to change the next morning. It was half-eaten toast on the table in front of her as I walked into the kitchen. She was scrolling through her phone. Her face was blank and hard to read. Then she spoke. She didn't call. It took me a moment to understand that her mother had been calling and texting her non-stop for a week, trying to fix something that was already broken. Now there's nothing. I had nothing to say. I put my coffee on the table and sat down next to her. A sharp, sad breath came out of her mouth. I think she gave up. Her voice didn't sound angry or bitter, it was just a quiet understanding. I drank some coffee. She shrugged as if it didn't matter that she didn't know how to fix it. When things get in the way, she's always good at acting like they don't exist. At that point, she was almost ready to admit everything. There were years when she was lied to and used as a part in a game she had no idea she was in. I didn't try. She put her phone down and locked it. "I'm not sorry I left. I didn't think you would." She leaned back in her chair and looked up at the ceiling for a moment. Then she turned around and looked at me again. "Still, it's strange. I thought for a long time that she cared more than me. She always said that you gave up on us." I looked into her eyes. She then shook her head. Now I'm not sure what I thought. It was an accident that she broke up a piece of toast when she picked it up. I gave her my full trust. Now her voice was softer. "I was sure." I gave a slow nod. "It's tough to not see something." She looked at me with her eyes wide open, as if she were looking for me for the first time. I sighed. "You never fought back. It wouldn't have made sense." After giving it some thought, she smiled in a way that was almost mean. "She's the one who's quiet now." Another long time of silence. Then finally, "What now?" I let out a sigh and set down my mug. "We now understand." She gave a head nod like that was enough. And it was for the first time. Our story is over. Do you want to subscribe our channel if you've made it this far? It really helps us a lot. I've picked out one more videos that I think you'll enjoy. You are welcome to click on them. I look forward to seeing you in the next story. Have a nice day.